You were told to be nice, to say the right thing, keep your voice calm, smile when needed, to listen more than you speak, to be gentle, agreeable, presentable. And somewhere along the way, without knowing how, that mask of niceness started to harden around your real self, because no one told you that being nice is not the same as being good. No one warned you that being agreeable can sometimes be the slowest path to invisibility. And she sees it. The one you're trying to impress, the one you believe will love you for your softness, your patience, your restraint, but she doesn't feel your center. She doesn't feel your spine. She feels something polished but empty, kind but disembodied, close but unreachable. Because what she wants, what she deeply, wordlessly craves, is not your niceness, it's your wholeness, your presence, your gravity. Carl Jung knew this well. He warned that a man who does not integrate his shadow will forever be controlled by it, that the persona, the socially acceptable mask we wear, can become a prison. And in that prison, many men rot in silence because they've mastered the external. They've learned how to behave, how to keep peace, how to avoid being seen as a threat. But they have forgotten how to be men that the soul can trust. And the women in their lives feel it, maybe not in words, but in sensation. There's a hollowness behind the eyes, a tightness in the jaw, a softness that feels more like resignation than reverence. She smiles back politely. She even thanks you for being understanding, supportive, safe. But she does not open. She does not surrender, because there is no fire in you that she can rest beside. Deida spoke to this directly, that the feminine is not waiting for a man to be agreeable, it is waiting for him to be true. Not arrogant, not domineering, but grounded in something deeper than opinion or impulse. She wants to feel that you are anchored, that your presence is not a performance, but a force. And that force does not come from pleasing, it comes from integration, from having faced yourself, from having encountered your own chaos, your lust, your rage, your fear, and chosen not to repress it, but to refine it. You see, the dangerous man is not the one who has impulses, it's the one who denies that he does. Because what is hidden rules you. What is seen can be shaped. The problem is that most men confuse politeness with purity. They believe that being harmless makes them holy, but no one feels safe around a man who has no edges. She doesn't want you to pretend you have no darkness. She wants to know that you walked through it and returned with your eyes open. She doesn't need you to suppress your fire. She wants to feel that you've learned how to hold it without burning her. Because only a man who has wrestled with himself can hold the storm of another without collapsing. And this is where the modern man falls short. Not because he is bad, but because he is fragmented. He has cut away parts of himself to be accepted. He has trimmed his wildness for the sake of comfort. He has exchanged his depth for approval, his truth for admiration. And so when she looks at him, she sees only surface. Safe, yes. Predictable, yes. But something in her aches for more. For a man who doesn't need her permission to be. For a man whose love is fierce, not filtered. So she tests you, not to manipulate, but to see. Can you hold your ground? Can you remain centered when she storms? Can you speak truth without fear of her withdrawal? Can you stop asking, is this okay? And start trusting what is right? Because that's what she's listening for. Not your words, but your center. She wants to feel your depth, your rootedness, your decision to be whole, not just polite. And in that wholeness, she relaxes. She trusts, not because you're perfect, but because you're real. And so the work begins, not in chasing her or fixing her or proving yourself, but in returning to the pieces of you that you left behind in order to be loved. In reclaiming the anger you were told was dangerous, the desire you were told was dirty, the grief you were told to hide. All of it, every shadow, every fire, every buried instinct is not your enemy, it is your path. And until you walk it, you will remain a stranger to yourself, and she will feel that strangeness. She will feel that the man before her is still apologizing for his own depth.
You may not remember when it started, But at some point, you're taught that love must be earned by shrinking. That in order to be chosen, you had to be convenient. That your presence must be measured, your tone agreeable, your desire silent. And so you began to split. One part of you moved forward, the version you believed was lovable, composed, careful, controlled. And the other part, the wild part, the honest part, the soul of the boy who used to laugh without asking permission, he was buried. And though the world congratulated you for becoming a good man, something in you always knew that goodness had come at a cost. Because when you amputate parts of yourself to be loved, the love you receive is never for who you really are. It's for who you've learned to impersonate. And then comes the tension. You meet someone. She's radiant, intelligent, deep. She tells you she wants truth, not performance. She wants depth, not decoration. And at first, you believe you can give it. You've read the books, you've learned the words, you've mastered emotional awareness. But over time, she starts to feel something that she may not even know how to articulate. That underneath all your softness, there is hesitation. A subtle flinch when she gets too wild, a quiet retreat when she gets too fierce, a discomfort with her chaos, and worse, a fear of your own. She wants to dance in truth. You want to manage the moment. She longs for your spine. You offer her strategy. And she starts to fade, not in drama, but in disinterest. Because somewhere deep in her bones, she senses what's missing. The part of you that never learned how to be with intensity without becoming it. You keep trying to be nice, to be fair, to say the right thing. But her soul isn't waiting for diplomacy. It's waiting for your fire to come online. But let me be clear. This fire is not violence. It is not control. It is not conquest. That's the cheap counterfeit sold by wounded men pretending to be strong. This fire is rootedness, clarity, the ability to stay when others run, the courage to speak when others calculate, the maturity to hold your pain without asking her to parent it. Because if your niceness is a disguise for your fear, it will always collapse under the weight of her need for truth. And that collapse, subtle or catastrophic, teaches her that she cannot trust your presence. You must understand, a woman's chaos is not your enemy. It is her soul surfacing, asking if yours knows how to swim. And if all you've practiced is standing still in still waters, the moment the storm comes, you'll drown in your own confusion. She's not asking you to fix her. She's asking you to hold yourself steady so she can finally exhale. And if you cannot hold your own depth, how can she descend into hers? This is where the work of wholeness begins. Not in learning more scripts, but in becoming unshakable by what is unscripted. Can you let her be a storm without shrinking? Can you feel your own anger without unleashing it? Can you feel your desire without apology? Can you feel your fear and still move forward? Because this is the man she wants, not the one who has answers, but the one who has anchored. Jung spoke often of the anima, the inner feminine in every man. He said that until a man makes peace with her, he will project her onto every woman he meets, expecting her to complete what he has refused to meet inside himself. And so men chase approval. They pedestal, they please, they orbit her moods, hoping to stay safe. But she doesn't want a satellite. She wants a sun, a gravitational center that warms, that leads, that doesn't disappear when she becomes lunar. If your masculinity is shaped entirely by what she needs, you are not a man in relationship. You are a boy waiting for instructions. And no woman can truly surrender to a man who needs her to feel powerful. It feels like a burden, not a bond. She may not say it, she may not even know it consciously, but something in her contracts because she cannot relax into a man who has not yet made contact with himself. And so it circles back to you, your practice, your presence, your ability to stay with your own emotions, your own confusion, your need to run and not run, to remain. That is how she begins to trust. Not because you said the right thing, but because your silence didn't flinch, because your gaze didn't look away, because your hands didn't tremble when she showed you the parts of herself that the world had told her were too much. And in that moment, you are no longer performing. You are embodying. You're no longer trying to impress her. You are resting in truth. And in that rest, she meets you, not as a man who wants to be liked, but as a man who knows who he is. And she feels it, not in what you do, but in what you don't abandon.
Some men hear this and go angry. They say it's never enough, she's never satisfied. But that voice isn't truth. It's fatigue masquerading as resentment. It's the cry of a man who has spent too long trying to earn love instead of letting himself be seen. Because being liked is a strategy. Being real is a risk. And at some point, you have to decide which life you're going to live, the life of being palatable or the life of being powerful. One keeps you safe, the other sets you free. To be whole is to stop negotiating with yourself about which parts are allowed to come to the surface. It's the radical act of standing in the full heat of your desire, your boundaries, your sadness, your frustration, and claiming them without shame. Not unleashing them, not collapsing under them, claiming them. Because a man who is split within himself will always feel fragile in love. He will either vanish at the first sign of emotional weather or he'll lash out in an attempt to control it. But neither is power, neither is presence, and neither is trust. She doesn't want you to be perfect. She wants to feel your substance. She wants to lean into your spine and know it will hold. She wants to speak from her soul without editing herself to protect your fragility. And if you're still terrified of her truth, it's because you've never truly claimed your own. You cannot be a safe space for her feelings if you're still afraid of your own. And you cannot offer her the grounded masculine if your masculinity is still outsourced to her approval. Deida once wrote that a woman's testing is not to provoke, but to reveal. She tests not because she wants to dominate you, but because she wants to see if your consciousness can hold her chaos. Can you see her flailing and still remain in love? Can you witness her tears without rushing to solve them? Can you be the calm in the middle of the storm? Not by detaching, but by refusing to drown. This is not about being stoic or aloof. It's not about some cold mask of false indifference. That is cowardice in costume. This is about knowing yourself so deeply that nothing she reveals can shake your footing. When a woman brings her rawness to you, she is not asking for you to fix her. She is asking if you can feel her and not flee. And every time you do, she softens. Every time you stay, she trusts. Every time you don't collapse into defensiveness or disappear into appeasement, she opens wider. Because her openness is always a response to your depth. And you may think this is unfair, that you shouldn't have to be so grounded all the time, that you should get to fall apart too. And you're right, you do. But not with her, within yourself first. Because if she needs you to witness your collapse so that you can feel okay, you are placing the burden of your unclaimed soul in her hands. And no love can survive that weight. She is not your healer. She is not your therapist. She is your mirror. And if what you see in her eyes terrifies you, it's because there's something in yourself you haven't dared to face. To be whole is to stop hiding. To walk into relationship with your fears and your fire intact, not suppressed, not dramatized, integrated,
so that when you touch her, you're not doing it to prove something. You're doing it because you become something. Someone who no longer trades authenticity for acceptance. Someone who no longer begs to be needed just to feel significant. Someone who doesn't flinch when intimacy gets real. And yes, this journey will cost you. It will cost you the comfort of being liked, the validation of being the good guy, the illusion of being in control. But what you get in return is worth everything. Your wholeness, your freedom, your ability to stand in any room with any woman in any moment and not shrink. This is not about becoming the alpha. It's about being real. And in a world addicted to mask, your truth is the most magnetic thing you can offer. Because when she meets a man who is not playing a role, not reciting lines, not positioning for advantage, but simply being, she feels something ancient and rare, the presence of a man who has come home to himself.
You see, being whole isn't about arriving at some final version of yourself. It's about stopping the war between the parts you've disowned and the parts you perform. It's about learning to carry your own heart into every room without asking for permission. She doesn't want your curated decency. She wants your secret density. The version of you that doesn't vanish when things get heavy. The version that breathes slowly through conflict, listens with his chest open, speaks with his gut online. The version that doesn't try to win love through sacrifice, but earns respect by presence. And this is why the nice guy always loses. Not because he's kind, but because his kindness is conditional. Because underneath his compliments is a contract. Be impressed by me, approve of me, validate me. But you can feel it, that quiet desperation, that ache to be admired, that absence of self. She may tolerate it for a while, especially if she's still healing herself, but eventually she will retreat. Not because she's cruel, but because your smile was never safe. It was a mask stitched by fear, and she doesn't want your performance. She wants your person. Wholeness means having nothing to prove and nothing to hide. You're not trying to manage perception. You're not editing your truth to stay desirable. You've stared down your loneliness, your shame, your rage, and you no longer outsource the regulation. So when you enter a relationship, you don't enter it to fill a hole. You enter it from the overflow, from fullness, from inner quiet. And that, ironically, is when intimacy becomes most alive. Because now you're not waiting to be completed, you're offering companionship from a place of sovereign peace. And that is magnetic. Not the loud kind of magnetic, the soft gravity that needs no announcement. You won't need to text obsessively or play games or read scripts about masculine polarity. You will simply be rooted, responsive, real. And when she speaks from the depths, you will not react, you will receive. When she reaches toward your wounds, you won't flinch, you'll meet her with awareness. You won't always know what to say, that's fine. What matters more is that you won't run. Because wholeness is not perfection, wholeness is capacity. The ability to stay emotionally online when the conversation gets raw, to feel anger without weaponizing it, to feel need without collapsing into boyhood, to feel desire without shame, to be in every moment congruent. And from that place, respect becomes inevitable, not because you demanded it, but because you are living from a center that commands it. This is what she wants. Not a man who flatters her, not a man who fears her, but a man who sees himself so clearly that he cannot be seduced by anything less than truth. A man whose stillness is not a performance, but a product of having sat with his own chaos until it stopped being foreign. A man whose hands don't reach out in longing, but open in invitation. A man who can be soft without being passive, strong without being aggressive, protective without being controlling, transparent without being fragile. And that's when the polarity she longs for begins. Not the macho caricature of dominance and submission, but the subtle dance between clarity and openness. Your clarity liberates for expression. Your presence deepens for trust. She no longer has to question where you stand because you can feel that you stopped hiding. She no longer has to test your depth because you've proven that you've walked through your own. This isn't the journey you've become in what she wants.
It's the journey of becoming what you've always been beneath the noise. Whole. Your task was never to be chosen. It was to choose yourself so fully that your very being becomes the invitation. She doesn't want a savior. She doesn't want a puppet. She wants a man who has made peace with his own soul and who now, from that place of sacred solidity, can finally meet her as an equal flame. Not because she needs you, but because she can finally trust you.